to Meet the Candidates, a show that brings you face-to-face with candidates running for federal, state, and local offices. Our Constitution empowers we the people to protect our country's future through the ballot box, a privilege and responsibility that many countries don't have. This sacred privilege gives you, the voter, the power to hire good leaders, while at the same time to fire bad leaders. We have the privilege of living in the greatest country in the world, but it'll only stay that way if we empower good leaders to lead. So this journey, if you'll go with me, will enable us to find out more about each candidate. Where do they stand on things like immigration, domestic as well as international policy? These are some of the questions that we're going to explore on Meet the Candidates. So stay tuned, let's go, get your notepads out, and let's find out who we need to vote for, who is going to protect us and sacrifice for us with the passion that they must have in order to keep America great. I'm Billy Graff, your host. Welcome to Meet the Candidates.
Today's guest is Taylor Whichard, and he is not a newcomer to the state of Texas. He was born and raised right here in the Sugar Land area. And from an early age, Taylor was instilled with hard work, honesty, and respect. He went off to Texas Tech University, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in petroleum engineering. And over the years, he worked in multiple companies in the area of drilling engineering. Then a few years ago, he changed degrees, he changed his career, and became a city engineer in Maryland. And now Taylor, y'all moved back, and he currently is employed by the city of Willis as their public works director. Taylor, it's great to have you on the show today.
Billy, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. I hope I didn't mess any of that up. Did I get it all right?
You got it right.
Awesome.
Mostly.
We are so glad that you're here with us today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you've taken on as a challenge in your life. And so what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to just give us a little bit of background on your family. You got a beautiful wife, you got some children, and your life's pretty busy.
It really is, but I wouldn't change that for the world. And I got a beautiful wife. She's supportive. I've got 3 handsome young boys, a set of twins. It'll be 7 in October.
Fantastic.
They're starting first grade, I want to say August 11th. And then the 3-year-old, he's about as wild as you can get. But we love them dearly.
Great. Well, what do you do for fun? You do anything for fun?
Well, this past weekend we went to the Great Wolf Lodge up in Grapevine.
Okay.
And the kids had a blast doing that.
Awesome.
Really
awesome.
I like being involved in Little League, helping coach.
Okay. Well, great. Sound like you are definitely a family man.
Yes, sir.
And they keep you busy. I raised some kids myself. Woo, those children will keep you busy.
Yes, they will.
Awesome. What would you consider your greatest accomplishment in the world of service to your community?
My greatest accomplishment is the fact that I'm always there to answer their calls. I'm always there to help solve their issues, regardless of what it may be.
Okay.
Now, sometimes they may not like the answer, but they get an honest answer out of me.
All right.
And that's something I take great pride in.
All right. So do you consider yourself a service-driven employee?
Correct.
Okay. Well, great. Well, you've got family, you have great activities. Why in the world are you running for Congress here in the great state of Texas in District 8?
Well, I'm looking to bring the strong American First conservative voice to District 8. 2020 showed us that it's imperative now more than ever to fight for this great republic. We need to secure our borders, secure our elections, and we have to remove that sick and twisted critical race theory from our public education system. It's divisive.
Right.
And
Okay.
those are 3 critical things that we're running on.
Okay. Well, I know you've got a lot of work experience. You've done different things in your career. How do those really correlate back to being experience that would help you really do a good job representing the Texas people?
Well, one, my oil and gas background is going to be a huge asset for me, I believe, especially in this area.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest industries here. It supports a lot of families, and the administration up there, they're trying to tear it apart. And that I can do really well at, and as well as being honest, respectful, and accessible to the people of this district. And furthermore, I'm an engineer. We identify, define, and solve problems on a daily basis. We can find ways to cut cost in any program that we're looking at without cutting the program itself.
Okay. Well, good. Have you thought about some of the things that you really are passionate about and the things that need to happen? What would be your number one priority if you're elected? What do you consider the number one thing that you really are concerned about?
I'm really concerned about our children and our grandkids' future. The spending that's going on right now, it needs to be reined in. This level of spending has to stop.
Right.
We have to start living within our means, or else our kids and our grandkids are going to be taxed to death. They will not have the same opportunities that the previous generations had.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the easy segment. I hope you enjoyed the easy questions, Taylor. We're going to take a quick break, and in just a minute, we'll be right back, and we're going to jump right into what we're calling the Liberty segment. And that's the segment where we talk about all the key needs and issues of our country, and we're going to get down to some deep, dark facts. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to what we call the Liberty segment. Now, the Liberty segment is very, very important because this is when we have the candidates answer questions that are directly related to things that are going on in our country and things that I believe we need to talk about. So number one, this administration is spending trillions of dollars it doesn't have, creating debt that our generations behind us are going to be responsible for. So Taylor, here's really what I want to know. Would you vote on spending bills in Congress that are going to add long-term debt that our children, our grandchildren are going to be responsible for?
Simple answer, no. We're broke. We're $30 trillion in debt. The spending has to stop. We have to start living within our means. Inflation's gotten out of control. We have to start living within our means.
Okay. The 2020 election brought to mind, and it brought into plain view, that there are some challenges to our election system. There are opportunities because of the way it works, that there are people who can, if they want to, challenge the validity of our ballot box. Now, the Democrats are very fast at saying that anytime we talk about any type of voter adjustment, voter integrity issues, they are all about describing it and putting it into the idea of voter suppression. We talk about having safe ballot boxes. They call it voter suppression. So my question is really simple. Where do you stand on voter integrity laws in our country?
Absolutely. We need to have voter IDs. We have to know, we have to make sure that whoever is voting is who they say they are. If I need an ID to spend my own money, you should have an ID to vote.
Okay. And are those hard to get?
No, sir.
Can anybody get an ID?
Yes. If you're a legal resident of the U.S., you can get an ID.
Okay. So let's get to the hard question, the one you've been waiting on, the one you just knew you were going to get asked today. Immigration, what I call illegal invasion of our country, is a major problem today. It is estimated that approximately 2 million people will enter America in 2021, and that is the highest number of illegal immigration in the last 25 years. And I think that it's very difficult when we open the gates to feed and house and give education away, and we give all kinds of freebies to people who are not citizens of our country. Where and when does that need to stop? Do you support reforms of the immigration system, and what would that look like?
First, we have to finish building Trump's wall on Texas soil. The amount of illegal immigrants coming through our borders, it's phenomenal. It needs to stop. We don't know who's coming across. We need to be able to vet these people. And we do maybe need to take a look at our immigration policies and make it a little easier, a little less expensive, but it needs to be done legally. We don't know who's coming over. You know, who's coming across these unpatrolled areas while our Border Patrol agents are focused solely on the thousands coming over on a daily basis in these known choke points.
Right. Well, there was an interesting statement made by President Biden not too long ago in reference to making some rules and some laws about the border, and his statement was very simple. He basically said that he knows that what he's about to do is unconstitutional, but he's going to do it anyway, and he'll just see what happens. My question is this: should the President of the United States of America follow the Constitution and the laws that have been put into play by the elected legislature of the United States of America?
He swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. It's plain and simple. The fact that our administration would go that route and publicly state that just shows you how they're wanting to move this country.
Well, if we continue to go down the way we're going on the border, let's just hang out here for a little while. If we continue to act the way we're acting from the federal government's perspective, where does the state have the authority to do anything, or should they do anything?
Well, the state has every right to finish that wall on Texas soil.
Okay. Would you support that?
Absolutely.
How do you think they could accomplish that and then actually provide security?
One, we need to give the Border Patrol agents the tools and resources they need in order to perform their job duties. We need to provide legislative support to these individuals so they can actually secure our borders.
Okay. Well, too often, our elected officials, once they're elected, they kind of forget that they're elected, and they begin to spend most of their time focusing on getting reelected. So my question is very simple. If they're not going to focus on the work, they're going to focus on getting reelected and forget about the people they represent and the liberties and all of the things that they're supposed to be doing. Do you find the concept of term limits as an idea that might be valuable?
It would be hugely valuable to the people of this great country. In term limits, it will allow fresh ideas to continually revolve through the doors of Congress and the Senate.
What would that look like practically, though? I mean, we've talked about term limits a lot in this. We've talked about self-term limits. There's a large conversation on a continual basis. Well, we have term limits. It's called an election. Okay, and so unfortunately, because we recognize that 85 to 90% of the time, an incumbent has the potential to win every time, and because it's a challenge, when you say term limits, practically, if you had your way, let's say you could write the rule, write the law right this minute, what would term limits look like?
I would say 4 terms would be enough for these elected officials to push the agendas they were elected to do. And if not, vote them out. We have to get rid of the career politicians. We have to get rid of the rhinos. We need actual Americans representing America, the hardworking Americans representing America.
Okay. Well, let's change subjects real quick. There's education. You touched on this earlier. Education is a key part of who we are in this country. Education is the building block that prepares the young of today to become the leaders of tomorrow. Here's my question. How much should the federal government really be involved in the K through 12 aspect of our children's education?
They should only be involved in making sure our children learn the basics. Let's go back to the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, factual-based history, not opinion-based. We need to teach our young children how to form their own educated opinions, not our opinions, their own opinions.
You mentioned something earlier in reference to that, CRT. CRT is a big talking point today in our country, throughout the country. What is it?
It is a sick and twisted, divisive train of or theory, and it teaches, or it's trying to teach our youths that because they are born a certain way that they are inherently racist. And to me, that is just wrong. That's not right. It shouldn't be taught. Now, if somebody wants to go and learn that, sure, but pay for it in college.
Okay. Well, let's talk on a difficult situation. Let's get to another real hot topic. Let's talk about life for a minute. Let's talk about the life of the unborn. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand? Like you said, you're a husband, and you're a dad, and I'm sure someday you want to be a granddad. So what is your view on abortion in America, and what direction would you try to take legislation in that area?
Well, for starters, Governor Abbott's heartbeat bill is a step in the right direction, and that's something that needs to be brought to the halls of Congress.
Okay. Would you like to go more than that? Tell me more.
And it's allowed Trump's Supreme Court to take a look at it further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, if we're able to get the education in the right place and you're able to actually begin to save lives, where do you stand on tax reform? Let's just go with that one. How about tax reform? You love to pay taxes, don't you?
Well, I hate paying taxes. It's just, unfortunately, something we have to do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the spending that they're having right now, the spending bills that they're trying to pass through Congress and the Senate, they're going to tax us to death. We need to start living within our means. We have to make sure that our kids and our grandkids actually have a future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you consider the role of the taxes that we pay? What should the government be doing with this money?
Protecting life, liberty, and property.
Okay.
And that's it.
That was some of the hard questions, but don't go away, because we're going to be right back, and we're going to do something that we rarely ever do in politics. We're going to talk about hope. We're going to talk about how can a representative actually give hope. We're fighting, we're arguing daily in our country. We're bickering about every little thing. We're devastating one another with words and actions. And I believe that there's still a better part of humanity. I believe there's a better part of our country that's to be found, our humanity. And when we get back, Taylor's going to give us his thoughts and his idea on how we can bring hope back to America. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Hope segment. The Hope segment is what I consider to be the most important segment of this show. Taylor, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to look right there in that camera, and I'd like you to tell America exactly what you believe will bring hope back to this great country that we live in.
What's going to bring hope back to this country is electing real Americans, real hardworking Americans, engineers, architects, businessmen and women, teachers. Let's get these real hardworking Americans back into the halls of Congress. Let's start pushing school choice. Let's create competition in the public school sector. Let's allow kids to get out of poverty. This will help. America is the greatest nation on this planet and has been for the past 200 years. But at the rate we're going now, if we don't get these career politicians out of Congress and out of the Senate, they're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Okay, we're great. So here we go. Boom. Taylor, congratulations, you just got elected. What are your top 3 priorities for the next 2 years?
We're going to be pushing education. It's going back to the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, factual-based history. We're going to remove critical race theory from the class curriculum. We're going to push school choice. Oh, there's one. Two, we're going to secure the border. We're going to finish Trump's wall on Texas soil. We've got to secure our border. And then let's take a look at our immigration policy, see how we can make it better and easier. And three, we need to secure our elections. We need voter IDs. We need to make sure that the chain of custody is there.
Okay. Well, now for the fun part. I like to give every candidate an opportunity to just share their heart, share their passion. You got 2 minutes to win the heart of every voter in CD8. What would you like to tell them?
I'd like to tell them that I'm going to bring that strong, conservative, America First voice to this district. I'm going to bring honesty, transparency, accessibility to this office. I'll be there. I'll be there to help solve your problems. As an engineer, that's what I do. I identify, I define, and I solve problems. I know how to cut costs and not cut programs. We need to push school choice. We need to give our kids a better education. It's the foundation of our country and has been for the longest time. We have to think about our kids. We need to remove these career politicians and these rhinos from office. We need term limits. You know, the America First agenda is alive and well, and that's what I hope to bring to CD8.
Taylor, it's just been great. Hope you've enjoyed
It's been a pleasure.
chatting today. And folks, I tell you what, next week we're going to have another great candidate. But today, Taylor has laid out who he is, giving you a little bit about his family, giving you some of his policy positions. And he just finished telling us exactly what he believes we can find when we look for hope in America. Well, this is Billy Graff, and we'll see you next week on Meet the Candidates.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and ownership of MCPLive.tv.